Alex, welcome to another edition of Opt-in. We've got 5 minutes on the clock, and today I want to talk about one of the points that Gartner made in their recent report, 4 ways to boost SDR pipeline generation. They went through and grabbed a bunch of different challenges and goals and difficult conversations that chief sales officers are having across the landscape of B2B tech sales. And they teased out a handful of findings and solutions in this report. Wanted to focus on one today. They talk about how SDRs are responsible for covering high volumes of both outbound and inbound leads, and that oftentimes productivity around prospecting tends to suffer because they have limited prioritization, guidance, they're doing too much context switching, et cetera, et cetera. So their solution is to create specialized roles within the SDR department, I guess you would call it, to help them focus on a narrower scope of sales execution, focusing on similar account types, similar types of outreach, et cetera, et cetera. I want your thoughts on that, maybe some examples that we can kind of pull out from what we've talked about on this show or other shows that we've done before, and give some concrete advice for people out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense right off the top of your head, all the things you pointed to, right? It allows you to focus on specific things. It's really often common as an SDR, especially as your company continues to grow and scale. They say like, oh, we have a new product. We don't need a new sales team. We'll just use the sales team that exists. We'll train them up on this new product and it'll be fine. And I think that's right. That's where a lot of these issues start to come from, where if you say new product, let's get a new SDR or 2 new SDRs, whatever the team size is, and they focus on that, that'll be great. I do have a question because I feel like there are some benefits to knowing how to sell or pitch at least all the different products. So does that article talk about, still make sure they're trained on the whole thing, or is it more suggesting like really if you hire the SDR for that specific product, if anything, any conversations that go in the other direction, they should just hand it off? What does it say about that sort of situation?
It's a great point. As far as I'm aware and reading through the report, it mostly talked about an organization with like one product, but different targets for that product. So instead of calling every organization you can possibly work with, having a group dedicated to just SMB or a group dedicated to just enterprise or just following up on inbound leads. So maybe less so on the breadth of knowledge that you might need across multiple different products. But to that point, I think there is value in giving a crash course, I guess I would say, for an SDR on everything that you do, so that given the opportunity, and we've done this internally here at Demand Drive, given the opportunity to talk with someone about something that your company can solve, but not you specifically, you can at least get enough information out of them or qualify them enough to realize, hey, my product line, not a great fit. But I know Alex over on the, mergers and acquisitions software side of things can work with you really heavily on that, just making stuff up. And I can make that warm introduction. Helps you, helps the prospect, helps me probably in some capacity. You find that win-win-win scenario. So I think there's value there. But like, again, specifically within this this report, it's more about like making sure that my SDRs are focused on just enterprise level accounts with this type of message, because it's different than the type of message that we would deliver to an SMB, or the type of activity you would be doing following up on an inbound lead versus doing a bunch of cold outbound. Right. We even suggest this here at Demand Drive, right? Like you don't want to pull resources away from existing internal functions, like you were saying, instead of trying to penetrate a new market or a new industry with the same reps that you have internally. You can alleviate a lot of the training and the resources associated with doing that by working with an organization like us. Having a different team responsible for just that specialization can drive a lot more results than scattering your current reps.
Yeah, I like that. And it's, I think, a more accurate way to split up responsibilities, right? You talk about sales loves territories, right? You got the East Coast, you got the Southwest, you got the Midwest, right? Everywhere, and every company splits it up differently. Like, okay, you've got the Carolinas and Georgia and West Virginia, and then you have Virginia through Delaware. I don't know. I'm just making things up. But
are you? That sounded really specific.
Well, I mean, I know how the country's laid out. But I feel like a more modern way to do it when everything's online, everyone, like, there's no field sales anymore. Well, sorry, in B2B tech, there's not a lot of field sales anymore. There's plenty of industries where it's very relevant still. But you don't need to be split up by territory, because what's the difference between a businessman and a business in Delaware than a business in Michigan than a business in Texas, right? For our selling purposes. Yeah, there's differences, but as an SDR, there's no difference. The difference is in the company size, their needs, that title, and like their roles and responsibilities for that title at that company. So splitting it up in ways that actually make a tangible difference to how you work and how they'll respond as a prospect just makes so much more sense to me.
Yeah. And we even talked about this a bit with, not a bit, actually at length with Carly Morian in a podcast episode of ours that we'll link here. But even splitting your reps up, not just by like the types of accounts they're reaching out to, but how they actually do the job as an SDR. Following up on inbound leads is very, very different than doing cold outbound. But additionally, even getting people registered for webinars and then following up on those leads is different than following up on inbound or doing cold outbound. Understanding how your marketing team is built and where you're getting a lot of leads, like what channels are really driving revenue for you, you can even use those to dictate how you want your SDRs to go to market. If you're really heavily invested in doing events and you want just an events focused team, they can specialize in making that experience for prospects really high quality versus maybe pulling a lot more of your eggs into the outbound basket, knowing that that's not as high of a converting channel for you. So like figuring out where you're getting a lot of leads and where they're seeing the highest conversion rates can dictate how you kind of split and specialize reps up to drive the most revenue for your organization. So a lot of different ways you can slice and dice it.
All right, AJ, 15 seconds. Tell everybody about Opt-in.
Opt-in, quick 5-ish minute videos, actionable sales development tips, minimal fluff. You can find us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on our Instagram, and on the website, demanddrive.com.
4 ways to boost SDR pipeline generation.
Boost. Experience boost.
4 ways to Experian boost your credit scores. Thank you, John Cena, for sponsoring this edition of Opt-in.
Ooh, where? He's right here. You don't see?